Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Andreas Melhede. Andreas is a Web3 investor and also the co-founder of Elata Biosciences. Elata is building the open alternative in neuromedicine, a permissionless open source platform that anyone can contribute data to, that they can develop new technologies under, enabling them to facilitate new research on a massive scale. You've probably heard of Whoop, Aura or Apple before. What those companies are doing for fitness, Elata is doing for brain and AI. SDK open source software supports apps launched on their App Store, a decentralized web-based digital marketplace where your biometric data like attention, stress and heart rate controls everyday apps. It provides a platform for games, meditation and neurofeedback tools that respond to your brain activity or web-based biosignals. These combine capabilities that don't currently exist together anywhere else. Andreas will be telling us more about their App Store, about this great open source software, and about the abilities it provides to let anyone access their biosignals. He'll also tell us a bit about Elata's unique point-based governance system, his plans for Elata going forward, as well as so much more. Welcome, Andreas. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let's just jump right in here, Andreas. What inspired you to help create Elata Biosciences?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it originally came from I had a loved one close to me that struggled with severe depression and anxiety, and that really made me realize how in neuropsychiatry everything is kind of just like guesswork. You're just guessing what a patient needs and doesn't need, so you don't really get a solution, or it's extremely hard to ever find a solution. I think the average treatment period is about 8 years or something, and it's only 33% success rates, if ever. So it's that's a large part of your life, and a very low chance of actually even getting better. So a lot of this is coming down to the fact that just hasn't really been developed personalized treatments and measurements of how actually different things affect different individuals based on the underlying biology. So we essentially were trying to figure out ways how we could solve this. And we first started actually building an EEG device. So to capture brain signals, basically like a cap you could put on your head that could then track it in real time. And we actually used that we did an event last year in Singapore, Token 2049, where people played, if you know the old school game Pong, where you have like two sides and have a ball in the middle, you have to make sure it doesn't cross the side. That game. So we hosted a tournament there. People used our device to then play the game Pong only using their brains. So we basically tried the technology back then to all fit together, and we kind of just discovered how, in general, there are many devices like this, many like different devices that can track brain signals, but the issue is they're all creating like just silos. So you have like one platform, one device, and you have about 2 to 3 million people that actually have these devices globally, of like some consumers. So it's extremely like limited to who actually has this. And if all the like small silos, it's really hard to actually get any usable and solid data to then improve personalized treatments and models over time. So we're thinking about how to solve this. And we then thought of the idea to then incorporate any kind of neurotech device to then track brain signals. And so leading back to the fact that only about 2 to 3 million actually have these devices, of course, it's hard to get anyone interested in even like trying one out. Even if they already have one, it's a very small market. So how to get people to even get interested in this kind of technology? So then we looked into something called RPPG technology, and that's basically the same technology that they're using in stuff like Aura, like I have my ring here, Aura ring, or a Whoop band. But instead of capturing like here from your finger or from your wrist or something, it's instead captured through a camera. So actually, the camera we're using right now could actually capture biological signals, just looking at you basically. So that means that anyone can access this technology from a phone or from a computer, and they can immediately onboard. And then if they get more and more interested, they can then dive deeper into more complex like neurotech devices, and then get different functionality based on that. So that's kind of in short how that whole vision has kind of been building out over time.
That's a really great answer, Andreas, and I'm really pleased to hear about how you've turned a personal hardship around into something truly worthwhile. We'll move right on to our next question here. Elata SDK is a cross-platform biosignal toolkit designed to help developers build neurotechnology and contactless biofeedback applications. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes. So the SDK is basically a way for any developer to integrate this technology, so capturing things with from brain signals from EEG devices and from webcam directly, and integrate that into an application. So that could be into a game, into wellness application. It could be even like tracking your real-time state as you're about to like do a trade. So imagine if you're very stressed or very like hyped up, you probably shouldn't do a trade because you're not acting rationally. So basically capturing real-time signals of how you're feeling, and then from there giving you ideal actions to kind of like do based on that. So so that means that anyone can access this technology, and it's all open source. And this hasn't really been possible before. Like most of these are just done in like closed silos where you have to then get access to the company, have to ask them to get access. And also as a general rule, then it's really hard to get any kind of value from it, because then you have to first get people to start using this application and start actually getting value that way. But we have then created this app store where anyone can then launch any application and monetize it and get value from it and get users through it.
Yeah, I've had a look at the App Store already. It looks really great. And certainly, if you're into longevity, then biosignals are usually quite an important thing. So quite a lot of people like to monitor their biosignals, things like blood glucose, heart rate variability, and other things just to measure their biological age. And obviously brain signals, brain function is another thing that they can also measure too.
Yeah, the whole thing too is that like if it hasn't been accessible to actually track your brain and what is happening there, it's just really hard to figure out what actually is good and bad for you too. And it's so I've personally been using the R Wing since 2019, so for a long time. And I think even for these kind of devices, even though they're valuable if you care about your health, try to figure out like what is good and bad for you. The biggest issue I see with these kind of devices right now is the fact that you don't know what to do about a given metric. So it tells you your reading, it tells you, oh, your heart rate variability is like this, but and then it's saying like, oh, you should push hard today, or don't push hard, basically. So it's very like generic saying what you should do and not to do. But what if you could actually figure out what you should do right now based on how your state is? And then you could optimize it based on that. Like to me, that's much more valuable, and I think that's a massive missing piece. So really trying to think about how to make this as accessible as possible in the real world and personalize it to you, like what is best for you right now. Like even a thing that I'm working on right now, one of the developers application, which I'm very excited about, is an application that tracks my real-time state, and then it tells me based on my day. So whether I'm having a work day, a recovery day, a social day, a travel day, what is my next best action to do? So should I do an intense work session? Should I like maybe do some breath work to calm down? Should I maybe just do some calm work, like just texting some colleagues or whatever, like nothing too hard because my state is like too low. Or like, what should I do based on how I'm feeling right now? And what is the best thing for me? And I think that's a way to actually make this really valuable for anyone, because then instead of just saying, oh, you have this metric and it's kind of going up or down, like, what does that mean? Or like, what can I do about that? You're actually saying, oh, directly, you can do this and this will help you right now based on how you are feeling right now. And that's like the way to really make it valuable to anyone.
Amazing. Very interesting stuff there, Andreas. And that will move us on to our next question. Elata SDK is an open source code. So in your opinion, what's the benefit of making the code open sourced as opposed to something that is proprietary?
Yeah, this is kind of back to the whole kind of origin story of like of course, there's several reasons as to why neurotech hasn't really scaled, but a big part of it is because of all these different silos. So if you're just building a new silo, it's all proprietary, and no one can really build upon it and use it. It's gonna take forever to reach any kind of scale. Like, so if you're not able to actually collaborate on this and actually put something together where you can get scale, then it's just never really gonna improve much, and it's gonna take so much time to do this. So our whole goal is to make this accessible to anyone and actually achieve sustained benefits over time for any person out there. So open source is the way to then distribute it to anyone.
I then mention that Elata has a unique points-based system that promotes and encourages participation in the Elata community. I ask Andreas to tell us a bit more about this.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, of course. So to incentivize positive behaviors, we are trying to then distribute points based on how much value a specific behavior has. So, of course, some of the most valuable behaviors include getting new people to actually try out the platform, and then getting someone to actually build with the SDK and launch it on the platform. But then also using any application on there, submitting bugs and feature requests and stuff is very helpful too. And of course, once we also launch our token, then staking that to then support a longer-term commitment to the project is of course a really valuable thing. You can also get points for as well. We have some plans later on with launches on regarding that as well, but I don't want to dive too much into that for now, because it is more a longer-term strategy where we're first just going to focus on getting people to actually use the product, get them excited, get more people on, and then launch great apps on there that can benefit anyone's life.
That sounds truly awesome, Andreas. Some really great things you're doing there. What I wanted to also follow up on though is Elata points. So from what I understand, this is a non-transferable token that gives voting rights. And basically these enable those who participate in the community to gain greater voting rights, as opposed to those who may just simply have greater voting power because they bought more of the token. So essentially it means that those with enough points can not only get more voting rights, but they will also be able to get early access to certain things too. For instance, during the first phase when a new app is launched, during that token launch, they would be able then to get early access as well as other features. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does benefit people with the more governance power, the more points they have, and later on it will also give more functionality regarding app launches and in-app features, and some other things further down the line. But yeah, that's everything I can share on that end for now.
Incredible, really great, Andreas. Well, that will move us on to our next question, which is Elata SDK can be used to create any number of different types of apps. Can you tell us about some of the most popular ones that developers are making with Elata SDK?
Yeah, so there's a lot of excitement regarding gaming specifically. So esports players that can optimize the gaming performance in real time. They can figure out what behaviors actually increase their focus and performance and decrease their stress, and then they can perform better in a tournament later down the line. There's a lot of excitement from game studios and game providers regarding that because they always trying to think about how they can improve their performance. And that is something that we're seeing a lot of excitement about. Then also in general, wellness apps, of course. So how you can improve. It could be your performance, your workday. It could be your health optimization too. Um, I would say those are the primary um, things I'm most excited about. It's also, of course, interest in research and stuff too. But I would say wellness and gaming have been the biggest verticals regarding what people have been most excited about at this stage.
Excellent, that's really great to hear. I mean, the global gaming industry is massive, now generating over 190 billion in annual revenue each year and reaching an audience of approximately 3.6 billion players worldwide. It's actually bigger than both the film and music industries combined. So, with this being said, do you feel this is an area Elata could potentially capitalise on?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely a really big opportunity moving forward, and there's more and more excitement about this industry. I think it's just growing. So I think also leading back to my point about how we did like that gaming tournament last year with the game Pong, like BCI technology. I think it's gonna be very big in the future as well, but you can like do things controlling only using your brain. And I think gaming is gonna be a really, really big deal for that. So I think like imagine you could play like I don't know League of Legends or Doom or FIFA or Call of Duty, whatever, only using your brain. That'd be extremely exciting. So stuff like that too. Completely different experience. Yeah.
Real interesting stuff there. And certainly, for those of us who are lucky to live long enough into the future, then we've certainly got a lot more things to look forward to. So that will move us on to our next question. And that's my next question is actually quite a straightforward one, really. That is simply, Andreas, what is your favourite video game?
Oh, that is that's a good question. Um, uh, so I would say my favorite game of all time is World of Warcraft. I played that when I was a kid, and it's just like nostalgia for me. And it was like a whole different world you like got into. And I remember like when it got out like 20 years ago or something. Yeah, it was like so novel and so exciting because you got into a whole different world. It was so cool, and you could level up and you can do quests and stuff. And yeah, I feel like it's always like a lot of nostalgia tied to that. But I've played a lot of games over the years. Also, FIFA and card games and Call of Duty as well. But yeah, I'm not playing too much like games anymore. If ever, it's mostly just to try to like relax or calm down. And if I'm doing that, it's mostly like card games or something.
I then mentioned the prospect for cognitive enhancements.
Yeah, and this is also of course, this is also why distribution and scale of the technology is so important because so right now invasive devices, so like brain chips and stuff, they can do really complex things already. Where you can have people like play really complex games and control things, stuff like that. But I think most people wouldn't really want to get a brain chip into their brain. Like like the surgery and the risk and everything, and you like imagine if that gets controlled by someone else. Like there's a lot of fear regarding that, which I completely empathize with, and I feel the same way. So our goal is then for to focus on these non-invasive devices like a headset, a band, earphones, whatever, and you can just kind of take it off and on when you want. So you can kind of like you could say be an upgraded version of yourself when you want, and it could be like the normal you when you want. So I think that is very exciting, where you can get that to be a really, really high quality, and for that you need massive scale to really improve models to then make this really personalized and working really well for you because it is much harder technology to make it high quality, because if you have it invasively, you're just basically like tapping on the actual brain nerves, but outside it's more like you're reading through the skin and everything, so it's harder to actually capture all the brain signals because there's a lot of noise. So that's kind of the thing, that the goal is to make this as good, if not better, than the actual invasive devices. So of course it's hard to say how good it can become over time, but like the whole thesis is like if you just get tons of people starting using this and training this and then personalizing it for you, you can probably get it to a really, really high quality level and probably get at least close to these invasive devices eventually.
I then asked Andreas if this overlaps with some of the more broader definitions of transhumanism.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing with also what you call like biological enhancement. So of course transhumanism is more broad, but generally like just enhancement of our biology is a part of that. So yeah, I definitely feel like it's a big part of it. Anyone interested in like um new technologies and utilizing it in the best way for humans to then get a better experience in life, I think that's kind of the thesis of it. So yeah, I would definitely say that's overlapping with it a lot. And some people they do want like brain chips and stuff in the transhumanist community. Um, but again, I think it's a much harder thing to really convince people of. So I think if you can get um, more usability and scale with non-invasive devices, you can get a lot of more people to actually benefit from these kind of technologies.
On your website, it states that we are still in the single digit percentage range, about 13 to 15 billion, of what a mature neurotech market could represent. What are your thoughts on the future of the global neurotechnology market going forward?
Yeah, I think even those numbers might even be conservative if you think about that neurotechnology hasn't really reached any significant amount of scale. And I think also, to me, there's a lot of interesting overlaps right now with AI, where it's getting smarter and smarter every day and getting smarter than most of us and increasingly will be smarter than all of us. And that means that we have to find a way to actually able to compete and add value to society. And I feel like here we kind of need some kind of biological enhancement, starting with our brains, to actually perform better. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very, very hard to provide enough value and compete with these models that will take over a lot of parts of society. So I think this technology is essential to actually make sure that we can stay relevant and useful and provide value and have have fulfilling lives moving forward. So I think we're just getting started with neurotech, honestly, and I think we're gonna see some amazing breakthroughs over the next decades here. Yeah, I think there's this like S curve model where you can see like how much the technologies evolve over time, and yeah, I think we're just kind of like in the beginning of that model basically. Yeah, I think also like if you think about just if there are only like about 2 to 3 million that actually bought these consumer neurotech devices, and that's not even people using it right now. Like maybe maybe like 1 million is using it right now, maybe less. So like it's nothing compared to how many we are in the world. And then also you're seeing like recently there's more a trend of actually trying to integrate these devices into normal like devices you're using, like into like glasses or earphones or like even like hats or like beanies. So if you can like integrate it into like a normal device you'd use anyway, you wouldn't even know you have one on because it's kind of like hidden. So I think like that's kind of the thing you need to like for any technology to really scale, you kind of need to like abstract away the technology and just kind of like give the benefit. I think that's really what we need to achieve to really see massive scale here. So yeah, I think that's yes, there's so much potential left in this field. Really, just getting started.
In your opinion, what would help
Yeah.
most when it comes to advancing the field of decentralized science today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one challenge has always been basically ever since I entered the space, kind of when VTDAO launched back in 2021, is that there's always been an issue of making this usable to the everyday person. Like most of it is focused on longer term projects where you have to wait so many years to get any potential benefit, if ever, where the failure rates are really high too. So I think you need to get to really valuable consumer value. And that's basically why we're trying to focus on this, like what can anyone access right now? So I think that's what you need. You need something that actually anyone can benefit from, and not need to wait like many, many years to see any potential benefit. Otherwise, it's just not going to reach any massive scale.
To this point, I then mentioned some of the great advancements made in longevity science over the last several years.
Yeah, I appreciate you being candid too there with so optimism, because I've seen a lot of people in like longevity circles over the years that've been like way too optimistic. They're like saying, "Oh, in 1 year, in 2 years, we're gonna solve all our issues." But it's like we barely even know like the fundamentals of like aging, what causes it and what it doesn't cause. So so many theses of what causes it, what doesn't, and people can't even agree on that. Scientists. So it's like if we can't even agree on that, how can we solve it in like a few years? Of course, with new technologies and AI and everything, it's gonna definitely make it go much faster than ever before, but it's still gonna take time. So I think it's important we're trying to be realistic here, what's actually possible and not. And I think even if we see some like significant advances in like 10 to 20 years, or we could actually see some benefit for ourselves, that'd be amazing. But expecting that to happen in a few years, I think that is close to impossible, in my opinion. That's like too hyped up.
However, I mentioned that we did manage to develop a COVID vaccine in only 10 to 11 months.
Yeah, well, it's a much harder problem than trying to find a root cause of one virus, like what actually causes aging and not, and like how do we fix that. But of course, if we could figure out just kind of a blueprint of the steps of what to like, you know, solve first, part of the aging process. Maybe say there's for instance, like I don't know, 10 steps to solve, and if we could just like solve one after another, maybe that could like constantly extend a little bit of life, and then we could just kind of see the exponential breakthroughs from there because we could constantly extend our like normal life, so we can all live longer, and then we could eventually, it's like a 10 step or something, like solve all of aging. So like if that was done, like very targeted, that could be possible. But yeah, we need a lot more support to make that happen, and it's a substantial problem. So um, yeah, that's probably unlikely to happen at least in the near future. But maybe eventually that will be what actually ends up kind of making them really massive breakthroughs when enough people are supportive of this. Because yeah, of course, a lot of it right now is people coping with, oh, death gives life meaning, but it's like if like to me, if you're loving your life, why wouldn't you want more of that loving life, like it's just that it's kind of doesn't make sense to me, that argument.
I mentioned that lots of people still don't buy into longevity even today because it seems impossible, almost like it's something too good to be true, and that's where many of the types of personal philosophies like this are likely to come from. I also point out that extending human life is no more harder or difficult than curing any other ailment that exists today. Cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cardiovascular disease, etc. And that this is why it's so important that longevity science has its own effective media strategy, which is precisely what we're in the process of doing here at JellyfishDAO. Because if the government, the public, and other institutions had supported longevity science in the way that they should have been doing over the years, on top of a cure for many or all age-related diseases, we could have already started to see the added benefit of bodies that revert themselves from an aged appearance back to a youthful state of health and vitality. And in spite of the fact that this biotechnology will be making its way into our society sooner rather than later, it still seems too good to be true for a lot of people within society today. I then continue on to make an analogy to FTL travel. Much academic thinking still currently portrays FTL travel as impossible, and this then percolates down into public thinking too. This is often due to factors such as energy requirements, with it's sometimes being stated that in order to move anything with any significant mass past faster than light speeds, that an infinite amount of energy would be required, which is complete nonsense. There really is no such thing as an infinite amount of energy. And the figures given on these things, like this, by people today that are presented as being near absolutes, are overwhelmingly likely to be revised, then be revised again further as our scientific knowledge continues to grow. Although given the speeds involved, given how difficult it is to imagine anything moving so fast without seeing the actual technology itself, in spite of the fact we already have some first-rate media depictions of this, to some extent it's understandable why many people would still think of the prospect as being impossible. I elaborate on this analogy further, pointing out that when it comes to being told why there is something humanity will never be able to do, that it's simply impossible, especially when it comes to areas like physics, that Einstein's general theory of relativity is one of the things most often cited. While the rationale provided is usually based on highly intelligent equations, only the people who wrote them, as well as a few other closely associated peers, would be able to follow along with such things. And what I often point out to counter such arguments is that general relativity only pertains to the 4 dimensions our science can currently quantify. But what about all the other potential dimensions that might exist out there? With this in mind, it also doesn't help that there are plenty of educated people willing to provide intelligently concocted explanations as to why certain things in our civilization are seemingly impossible, long before we've even gotten close to testing them firsthand. Again, especially as much of the rationale they present today will likely end up being revised, and then revised again further, as our scientific knowledge continues to grow. I then go on to mention that this is a comparison which is actually relevant because it's a problem the field of longevity science faces too, and people awarding grants will often overlook longevity-related projects in favour of areas they perceive to be less ambiguous fields of study. Ultimately, when people don't believe something is possible, it's a big problem, especially if it's something really difficult to conceive of. And this is certainly one of the main challenges facing the field of longevity science today. People can much more easily conceive of curing something like cancer, in spite of the enormous economic burden it will bring once people begin to live even longer than they currently do into old age, than they can a longevity treatment that we can not only anticipate would likely cure almost any and all types of cancer, but revert the body back to a peak state of physical health, strength, and physical beauty in the process. And that's why society and governmental institutions are currently willing to spend countless billions on things like cancer research, versus a mere fraction, less than 10% of this amount, on combating the causes of age-related diseases like cancer by researching aging directly through the vector of longevity science. I follow this analogy through to its conclusion. Even at mere percentages of the speed of light, the speeds are ridiculous and very hard to conceive of without seeing them firsthand. The Expanse undoubtedly gives the best depictions of near-future technologies, depicting advancements in infrastructure consistent with technology we might expect to find as we move towards the latter half of this millennium, with the Epstein drive making the rest of the solar system accessible by enabling ships to travel up to around 5% of the speed of light. Even at these speeds, you would be travelling 33,530,832 miles per hour. That's 9,314.12 miles per second. And that's still only a mere fraction of the speed of light. However, With the proper material composites for spacecraft, shielding, and reactors to facilitate proper power generation, what seemed impossible will one day be within reach. And once we are able to reach even fractions of light speed, how much can we anticipate attitudes will change? Do you think we will encounter the same number of educated people we find today coming up with equations to tell us that something like faster than light travel is impossible? Probably not. And it would be fair to say that attitudes on such things will naturally start to change. Because once we reach speeds approaching
33,530,832 miles per hour,
these sorts of distances will simply start to become numbers. And we might as well be travelling at transwarp speeds, which are theorised to reach 10 to 20,000 times the speed of light, which would top out at around
1.34123326 times to the power of 10 over 13.
With this in mind, it's fair to say the same is likely to be true for a field like longevity science too. Once we start to make the breakthroughs that allow us to achieve even slightly notable gains in life extension, comparatively small advances that enable us to live even a few decades past the baseline norm, we can anticipate the types of senseless opposition and personal philosophies currently holding back the funding and legislation needed to do the research so we can make the progress required. Like the statements we encountered, such as death is something beautiful, will naturally start to dissipate. And we'll start to see real progress in this field, in what is currently the most undervalued and underappreciated field of science and human civilization today.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing you bring up too, with like the where you need to see the breakthrough to believe it. It's the same thing with like previous breakthroughs of, say, like the 4 minute mile, when no one thought you could sustain that, you would just die if you kept running. But then someone did it, and then suddenly, oh, it's possible, you know. So it's interesting how people just have such a hard time conceiving something, unless they really believe it or they see it for themselves. So of course, like, that's the issue. If no one even thought about that being possible, they're never gonna really support it, because it's like, oh, that's a crazy thought. Like, why are you even saying that? You know. But then, if you actually dive into the whole field and the breakthroughs that are coming and everything, you actually see, oh, this actually could be possible, and it probably will happen eventually. It's just how much support do we get for it, and how long would it take?
Andreas then goes on to make comparisons to the neurotech market.
Like, the two biggest consumer neurotech companies. So one is called Muse, and the other one is called Emotive, where they have, I think Muse is about 600,000 customers, and Emotive about, I think, 300,000 customers. And Muse started in 2007, and then Emotive in 2011. And yeah, to think about just when they started, like, even anyone wearing consumer, like, neurotech wearable that was outside the lab was like, a lunatic. It's still, of course, it's still like kind of crazy today, but much less so than it was back then. So it's like, yeah, you need to see this, possibly. You need to see some benefits, and you need to understand how this could work. Otherwise, you just won't really conceive of it even being possible.
Andreas then goes on to make the assessment that in order to see the kind of successes we deserve in our respective fields, that we need to stay grounded and apply the appropriate degree of rationality.
It's a funny thing, like, if you've been in longevity for a while, because then sometimes you just see new people coming in, and they're seeing, oh, there's a breakthrough in, like, a mouse study. And if you actually have been in longevity, you understand that it means nothing. Like, it could be completely opposite in the human. So it's like, okay, it's good to see progress, but it could mean nothing for us, essentially. So it's funny sometimes too, that you see some people coming in, they're like way too excited. And I think I had the same when I first got interested in longevity back in, I think, 2019, 2020. But then I got more rational over time, understood like how these things fit together, and what is important and not for actual research. So that's an interesting thing too. That like I'm seeing these new breakthroughs, and I'm seeing some people talking about, oh, we're gonna solve aging in like 2 years because this is a new breakthrough and stuff. But it's like in mice or rats or something, which could just mean nothing. So it's a funny thing too. They don't see the duality there of people that kind of get in and then they get kind of too excited about the topic.
I then mentioned the comparisons between the longevity field and the work Andreas is doing with Elata.
Yeah, we also see like promise in like things like creating like a brain age where you can also measure your brain age. So we're also planning on also like developing that based on the usage too, to like try to also like help solve some longevity challenges too, because that's like it's the most important organ we have. So if you can actually figure out what causes that or not, like that, and that's a massive step towards actually um, being youthful for longer to actually be able to use your brain properly. So.
I then bring up the fact that in previous interviews Andreas had mentioned he'd been in contact with people from Vitalia about setting up a possible base there. This is obviously a city that many involved in decentralised science are often interested in, as it was designed to bypass traditional bureaucratic constraints. I asked him if there had been any developments there.
Yeah, so we have been in touch with some people from there over the years since we started. Also, Nicholas, like the kind of founder there. Yeah, they rebranded now to Infinita, I think a year ago or something. But yeah, so we have been in touch with them for a while. We haven't found complete overlap yet, but we're definitely in contact with them and still exploring. And eventually, we probably will do something there and probably will set something up there. So we definitely are very interested in that, and really appreciate what's happening there as a whole.
To round off a great interview, I asked Andreas what his ambitions for Elata are going forward.
Yeah, so the goal is for anyone to have a personalized neuro profile. So basically like a personalized model of how your brain works and then how you could then target different treatments and behaviors based on that. And so we are doing that through a technology called federated learning, which is basically on device machine learning models. So that means that the data is never leaving your device. There's like a global model, global machine learning model, where you have updates being shared across one device and the global model, but no underlying raw data is shared. So it's a way to then achieve privacy while consistently iterating on the models and then making more and more tie into your brain, and then basically improving all the users' experience and all their personalized neural profiles over time without sacrificing any data privacy. Of how long it will take? Yeah, so we are orchestrating that right now. Um, so so basically, it's being put into effect. So of course, like it's yeah. The question is how targeted you want that to be, and how you want that to be, and of course, the more people use it, the better it's gonna be for everyone on there. So yeah, it's just gonna consistently being improved over and over time.
Thank you, Andreas, for such a great interview. I had a lot of fun learning about the things Elata Biosciences is currently doing in the neurotech space, as well as all the great things it has planned for the future too. And I'm sure we'll hear more about some of those things in due course. For those of you watching this, if you want early access to Elata's site,
Elata.bio,
we have an early access code for you. This will work for the first 5 visitors, and you should see the code displayed on screen now.
Thank you as well. And yeah, if anyone's interested in health optimization, high performance, or something like that, then definitely check us out. Feel free to reach out as well. If you have any ideas for us, any feedback, love to hear anytime. And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to go through this. Yeah, really appreciate what you're doing with your product as well, and I'm excited to see you guys launch.
A big thank you for everyone who's taken the time to join us today. I hope you found the things we've discussed as interesting as I did. And remember everyone, just like your physical health, Let's promote a healthy neurological state of mind, not through healthy aging and death, but through science and longevity. This has been JellyfishDAO with our friends from Elata Biosciences.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.